Hello, everyone. I am Brady Bridges, and I'm the broker and owner of Reside Real Estate here in Fort Worth, Texas. I want to welcome you to another episode of Real Talk with Reside Real Estate. We are a top producing team here in Fort Worth, Texas, and we want this podcast to be a resource for anyone looking to learn more about real estate and the great city of Fort Worth, Texas. Welcome to another episode of Real Talk with Reside Real Estate. Today, I'm joined by Tyler Wright. He is the owner of Wright Homes here in Johnson County. Is that right?
Correct. Yep. I got it.
So Tyler, thanks for coming on. I thought it'd be really beneficial. You know, a couple of weeks ago, I had somebody with Highland Homes, which is a big production builder, coming in. I thought it'd be good to hear from the other side of the business, more of a custom, smaller builder. So if you could, go ahead and tell us about yourself a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. My name's Tyler. Like you said, I grew up in East Texas building homes with my dad. He built homes growing up. I would go around, pick up nails, kind of spend time with the framers. Imagine if he could go back, he probably wouldn't let me spend as much time with the framers. But I built my first home by myself in 2012, and we've kind of been around it ever since. Kind of at an arm's length until 2019 when I moved out here. I moved to Granbury to work with my brother-in-law for Premier Homes out of Granbury.
Okay.
And was the general manager, I guess, for him for the last 4 years. And we were more a regional builder, not as big as Highland, for sure not as big as Highland, but a big regional builder. At one point during the pandemic, we had 160 some odd homes going on. So I've kind of seen both sides of it. In January, I started my own company, wanted to have a more personal relationship with the customers and focus more on custom homes.
That's great. So being from that side, and obviously, you're 7 months, you started this year?
Correct.
So being on the side with, huge production jobs, building at scale, how has that transition been, shifting over to, less jobs, more in front of the customer? How's that experience been?
It's been good. So obviously I haven't had a whole bunch of homes. By a whole bunch, I mean 4 or 5 homes under construction at this time. I've been more building relationships with customers, trying to get homes under contract and get them started, which we're at that phase now where I actually have dirt work going on, forms going up. So now it's going to be more on the side of building the homes, being on the job site, boots on the ground, a different kind of fun and stress, if you will, from the last 6 months of starting the company, meeting customers, trying to get the work. But it's been I've really enjoyed the process of the transition from, having 7, 8 superintendents, all the staff, and just kind of taking a step back and, all right, this is my company. What do I want it to look like? What do I want to do? And kind of go from there.
Yeah. And I'm sure when you do step back, right, as you scale up in your business, like on a production side, you have to get big because your overhead's so big.
Correct.
So it's kind of nice if you can do, I guess, what is your goal? What would be an ideal type year, like 20 homes a year type situation?
I think so. So, I mean, I do, what I'm going to focus on primarily are custom homes. I do have a few spec homes that I'm building. And if that's something that I could scale, that would be great.
That's the direction we're going to go.
Right.
Yeah.
And, that would require, maybe another superintendent, maybe somebody in the office, depending on how many. If I did 15, 20 specs a year, that would require some additional staff. And, personally, I've built custom homes with, superintendents, with a selection coordinator, with an estimator. And I just want it to be more like I'm the salesperson, I'm the selections coordinator, and the ball doesn't get dropped as much when you're kind of just...
Yeah, you're involved, and it's nice too, I'm sure, having one point of contact in the whole deal.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think one of the misconceptions we get, and I think it's just been a shift in real estate in general, the idea of custom homes is really, it's more rare now than it used to be, right? Because a lot of these builders have shifted to that model.
Yep.
So somebody comes to you and they say, I want to, and this is a area where we get a lot of questions, is do you allow people to build on their own lots?
Yes, absolutely. Most of the times those customers that have their own lots that have been thinking about building, they've either already found a floor plan that they like online, they've already talked to an architect, or they may already have a floor plan. And at that point in time, it's just like, okay, I get a copy of the floor plan. I run through an estimate. Here's what I think we can build it for. And, on those type of deals, the structure would be like a cost plus percentage. So essentially a builder's fee to build this home for these people.
So let's just say somebody has their own land, but they have no clue. What is the starting point in that conversation, right? Like, hey, Tyler, I think Jen and I are going to build a house. We found a piece of land we like. Like, what are the steps you have to take to really build a custom home?
So if you just have the land and you haven't even started anywhere, and the first assessment is, all right, well, what's the lay of the land? Where would a home even go? How big of a home are you wanting to fit on it? And if you don't have an architect, then I have 3 different designers, architects that I use. Each one of them has their strengths and weaknesses. So, and they have different floor plans and different designs as well. So after the initial conversation with the potential customer, I kind of know which architect they are going to fit in with, or what floor plans.
Yeah, they just have to say we want a modern style or something.
Correct. Yeah. So, and I have hundreds of floor plans to run through and look at. A lot of times you can find a floor plan based off just, this is what I want with very small modifications. Instead of starting from scratch, it's much easier to take something.
There's been a lot of homes built.
Exactly. So I'll usually start there. I'll personally like to redline the plans with the customers. What do you want to do here? Because architects are great. I'm not an architect. I never probably could be, but sometimes what you design and what you put on paper doesn't work.
Yeah, functionality minded.
In the field.
Yeah.
So I like to, regardless if I just say, hey, here's this architect, to go talk to them, I still want to be kept in the loop on, email threads, conversations, so I can say, yeah, that's a great idea, that'll work, or no, I've tried to do that in the past. Practically speaking, it doesn't actually work.
Yeah. Looks good on paper.
Yeah, exactly. So, I'll send them to one of those people, or I'll have communications with the architect and the customers on their design, and they can, whatever they want to put in the home, as long as it, makes sense and works and can be done, then they can do it.
So I think one of the things that we see people run into a lot that they don't understand is when you talk about, you have spec homes, right?
Mm-hmm.
On a spec home, that's just going to have a set price that somebody comes and buys, and you're carrying the note if you have one on it.
Correct.
All the risk is essentially on you still to build out that house. If you're going through a custom job, what does that look like in terms of finances, and what should people expect realistically if they're wanting to build a house? Because we get this a lot, like, oh, I want to go build a house, but I want the builder, like, they still think it's just like, a D.R. Horton house that they can go and say, we want to pay this much money and be able to put the house there.
Yeah. That's not the case in most instances. I would say 90 to 95% of the time, a builder is not going to say, I'll build it for this.
No, I'm saying, I know that.
Oh. I guess, what are you saying?
What should somebody expect in terms of, like, you talk about cost plus?
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to go build a house, a custom house, what should you expect, like, in terms of financing? Like, what does that look like?
So they'll need, if they own the lot, if they own the land and they own it outright, then...
Because you're not going out and buying the land for them.
Correct, no.
And doing all that, so...
Correct. So if they own the land free and clear, then, they're going to have no problem getting a loan from a lender. They've got X amount of equity in this land that they're just going to use as collateral.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll be built-in equity in the project. Some lenders may require, if they bought the land and they put 10% down or 20% down, they've had it less than a year. Sometimes lenders want them to hold that property for a certain amount of time. It varies before they actually build on it, try to build in more equity into that land.
In which I know the lending side's not your side of the business.
No, not really, but I've done a lot of it.
But how does that work for you, right? You say, okay, well, we're going to get started. Since you're not carrying the note, how are you as a builder getting paid throughout the process to continue on doing the work? Because it's not like you pay at the end type job, right?
Correct. So on a cost plus job. They're going to have, I'll give them an estimated cost to build the home. They provide that to the bank. The bank is going to secure the loan for them in that amount, plus probably a 10% overage.
Yeah, for if selections go over, things like that.
Price changes, what have you. If we're going over that, then, there's something that's not right. Something was estimated.
Somebody picked out too expensive.
Or somebody told me they wanted, a certain appliance and they wanted wolf.
Yeah.
Here they ended up getting wolf or something. So they'll have a loan with the bank, and the bank will usually have or the customer will usually have X amount of dollars, sometimes in an account that they draw from first, and then they draw from their loan from the bank. I use a software called Builder Trend for just project management, from finances, scheduling, everything like that.
Yeah.
And I can create, I'll get a bill from somewhere. I'll create an invoice, add my percentage to that or my builder fee, and then I'll turn that into either the bank or the customer or both, depending on how the bank wants to handle those draw requests.
So how often are those times? Is it are there stages? I did a pool remodel, right? And it was like, when we get to this point, is that kind of how it works in the same?
It is. So it's usually, there's a lot more moving parts. So typically I draw every week. It's like one bank I'm working with right now on a project, they only allow 2 draws a month.
Okay.
So essentially every other week I'm making a draw. And that's just communications I have to have with my subcontractor. Sometimes, hey, my relationship with this bank is this way. I can only make draws at this point in time. I can pay you a week in arrears.
Yeah, I think, and I don't know, I had some clients that actually had an experience where a builder was carrying the note on them, but they put it on a large escrow, and that builder went out of business. So
it was on their lot?
Or the builder on the lot, but they had a large escrow. It's been a nightmare situation. I think a lot of people get scared about the idea of a custom home, and I think one of the things that I could take away from this conversation is that if you're going to do custom, you need to own the lot yourself. Because I know some builders will let you do total custom on their lot, and then you're putting yourself at risk at that point, right? If you're putting the money out for the custom build, but they still own the land it's on.
Correct. There is more risk, but most of the times in those scenarios, like if I owned the lot in the past, I've always done like a fixed price contract for something like that.
Yeah.
With allowances for certain aspects of the build. And if they go over those items, then it's a change order.
Okay.
But those are usually, so some of the risk is taken away from the purchaser because it's a fixed price contract when it's on a builder's lot.
Yeah.
But yes, you are correct that if you're putting up a lot in escrow, you do run the risk of that going away. And a lot of that,
I think that particular case is because the interest rate changes happen, and it just crushed them.
Yeah. We only kept escrow in the past a down payment in the past if selections were made that we couldn't market to other buyers and had to make changes.
Mm-hmm.
We would keep some of that to make those adjustments. But for the most part, historically, while I was at the other builder at Premier Homes, we would typically give that money back in good faith because, you kind of get out of the world what you
give us a time, do what you're supposed to do. We're going to do what we're going to do. There's nothing to worry about.
Right. We're not in the business just to keep people's deposits.
Yeah.
We're build homes, so we try to have a good name out there.
So I know this is going to vary, but let's just say from start to finish, right? If somebody wants to go build a house, what is typical timeline right now? I think you were saying earlier off camera, you're building a lot of stuff in like the mid 3,000 square feet range.
Yep.
So how long does it take from start to finish to build one of those homes?
Well, the first thing is define and start. So I typically define the starting phase of, when we get form boards up on a job.
That true organizer.
Right. Because there's so many things prior to that point that are outside of a builder's control: utilities, architectural, engineering, unforeseen things that you come across while you're doing dirt work. Mm-hmm. At that point, once you get form boards, you have control. You obviously have as much control as you can get people to show up when they tell you they're going to show up. But the unknowns shouldn't be as prevalent at that point. So some people say once the foundation's poured is when they start this construction timeline. But from whenever I get the home under contract if I've seen the site, if I know what I'm getting into as far as site work and utilities and things, then I typically tell people 8 to 10 months. If it's a neighborhood that has utilities in place, it's a fairly flat lot, not a lot of undulating hills and a lot of site prep, then 8 to 10 months from the time of contract is pretty reasonable, because I've already done all the legwork of getting pricing and estimates and things like that.
Yeah. So you aren't involved in the utility side, right? Like if you...
Most of the time, no. Like I say, here's the cost to build the home, less utilities, less, it's kind of the slab and
So I don't think you said, so where are you primarily building right now?
So right now in Granbury and Godley primarily, but I've built a bunch of homes in the past in Parker County. My main areas that I'm interested or would work mostly are Parker County, Johnson County, and
yeah, just kind of on the outskirts there.
Yeah, I mean southeast town. I don't want to get into like Fort Worth city proper, more than likely, but more the rural area.
I've got people here that do remodels, and they say it's just a nightmare with the permitting side, and so inside Tarrant County.
We built my niece's house in Fort Worth here off of Linden Avenue, and it was not easy.
You'll turn down that John Nick though?
I think so.
So you've always been doing this for a long time. Your family's been in it. How are you keeping up with trend changes and because things change all the time. Like all these production builders are changing their plans all the time. How do you keep up with what's going on and making sure you're in the know what the next top thing is?
Yeah. So I talk to you, talk to real estate agents, get feedback from them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to the Sunbelt show. I think it's the Sunbelt Builders. I believe it's what it's called next week.
Okay.
Here in town. My wife's a real estate agent as well. And just kind of what you do as a living. So you're always looking at what's trending, what are staples also. Like on spec homes, it's like, okay, well, you don't want to get too trendy because as soon as you get done building that home, then maybe that's not in anymore. So what's something that people have liked for a long time? Mm-hmm. On custom homes, it's kind of,
Yep.
I don't really, it doesn't matter. It's like, what do you want? What do you like?
I mean, that's kind of weird, but if you want it, I'll build it.
I give feedback, on some things. You kind of have to figure out where's that line on recommendations and what you want to say and what you shouldn't say.
Yeah.
For the most part, though, people want to know what their opinion is, because builders have built a lot of homes. So,
what are you seeing right now? Like the ones you're building, what's kind of the thing everybody's trying to do? Is it?
So right now, the one I'm building is they're still wanting this particular customer still wants, which is maybe a year or two, I would say. A year or two ago was a big hit. It was like black fixtures.
Mm-hmm.
So they were wanting the black fixtures, kind of lighter color interiors with some painted cabinets and some stained features in the kitchen. I've got another customer that just wants, all stained naughty alder interior cabinets, just your traditional browns, brown families, if you will. I personally, in my house, we just moved into it last year, and my wife wanted the champagne bronze.
Did you
plumbing fixtures? I did.
Okay, good. I'm glad your wife trusted you to build it.
Yeah, she picked all the everything else. She did a great job. It's a lovely home. But a lot of the countertops that are in right now are the, kind of the lighter colored or white granite or quartz with the veins running through.
Yeah.
It, and some perfect grayish cabinets is what we used. So not so much your stark grays anymore. It's more of a white, same colored trim.
It'd be like agreeable gray. Everybody wants agreeable gray in their house.
Yeah.
We got one bedroom and now Jen wants to paint it. We've only been there for 4 years. So what mistakes are you seeing people make going through that process?
So going through the build process, really, really take what your builder, whoever it is that builds your home, whatever they're telling you as far as the expectation on timeline, try to hear that and understand it, and that's what the expectation should be. I see a lot of people get other, expectations outside from the builder or some other sources, well, this person built their home for that. Well, I don't know what kind of home that was, but here's what I'm building these homes, the quality at, and how long it's taking. Other mistakes, like mistakes isn't.
Maybe let me rephrase the question. What would be like your top tips to someone that's going through the new construction process?
Like I interview a few builders. I would say don't meet with just one builder,
okay.
At least two, so you have something to compare. Whichever one you feel most comfortable with, whichever one, talk to your agent, which one do you trust just from the conversations you've had? You know what your gut tells you when you're talking to somebody. With the aspects of designs on the homes, I would say focus on, don't cut corners on storage. Storage is overlooked a lot of times in floor plans. Coat closet here, broom closet here, bigger closets for clothes, linens. A lot of times, if you're going and just getting a spec home, a lot of times the storage is lacking.
Mm-hmm. Trying to maximize the square footage.
Yeah. And garages are overlooked too, a lot of times.
If I could redo my home, we need about a 3-car garage worth of space for all the stuff that we need stored.
Yeah. But no, I mean, just rely on the experts, especially if it's your first home, have a good agent that knows what they're talking about, and trust your gut when you're talking to the builders on what they're telling you is what their expectations are.
And I don't know if you agree, but I think patience is a big one. Just be patient.
It is. So to builders and to real estate agents and people, this is what we do day to day. This is our job.
Mm-hmm.
But to somebody that's building a home, it's very personal. And I understand emotional because that's their life. I mean, that's one of their biggest investments they're ever going to make. And I understand that, and so do you. So sometimes we may be like, well, they'll get to it, or we might not seem to care, or we're not as loud as you are about a certain thing, but it may be something that's going to fix itself a week or 2 weeks down the road when they come back to do something on the house.
I'm sure that's a big people come in and see something during the build process, like, Tyler, what's this?
Yeah,
it's like, I know about that.
Yeah. Well, so for instance, we had the house one time where there's an unhappy customer because of a certain like pony wall in the house, and customer came in and took a box cutter to the wall because he didn't think it was being addressed. Well, the superintendent had a plan for when the sheetrocker came back to do his final patch. He was going to take that sheetrock off. The framer was scheduled to come fix the wall and address, it was all scheduled and taken care of, but he wasn't happening fast enough for him. So, and it wasn't his property. It was on our lot. And so I was like, we just vandalized our home. So that's an extreme situation. A lot of times there's a plan in place. So err on the side of grace with your agent or your builder and see what their plan of action is before, jumping any conclusions.
So this leads me to a good question. What should buyers be looking for in a home builder? What are the good characteristics of a home builder?
Communication, attention to detail, somebody who knows how to build rapport with the subcontractor and vendors, and how to get them to show up when they said they're going to show up to the job site. There's a certain way to talk to people to get them to come out to your job site and work. They can like you and come out there and do it. You can hold their money from them if they're not coming out and doing it. You don't want to get to that point. You want to just be like, have a relationship with the subcontractor, and they show up when they say they're going to, outside of any, circumstances outside of their control, obviously.
I never realized how many games you guys have to play, like getting them to show, because Jen and I are doing that bathroom remodel right now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a social dynamic.
The guy that we have a guy that helps us with our rental houses. Like he's a kind of a contractor, and he is like, Brady, you got to understand, like these guys are good, so we got to work around a little bit when they say they can't be there.
Yeah.
But so you wonder why I'm bald. Like,
So I show up, sometimes I'll show up with a 6-pack of beer for these guys if they're working. If it's 4 or 5 in the evening and I'm going to the job site, wrapping up today, here's some cervezas, thank you all for a good job, gracias. And just kind of make sure that I show that I appreciate them. They want to come out, they want to do a good job. If you come out there and just kind of like, you're doing that wrong, that's not right, their attitude changes, yeah. And there's a lot of work in this area too, so you have to do things to keep them coming to your job site.
So has it been much easier to find good subs? I know, like, I can't imagine how hard it was COVID years when you were.
So they held all the cards because they could get more money and more work, just their work anywhere, and they really didn't have to do as good a job, quality-wise, because they're like, well, I'll just go somewhere else. Yeah. So that was tough. That was hard. That was super stressful.
Well, I'm sure consistency in work was, like, not there, right?
Correct. And then supply. I mean, it's just the whole thing. It was unsustainable, the best way to put it. And then everybody got burnt out,
So now is it much easier to keep the same crews going and, like, consistent?
It's gotten back to
you have your loyal people that are kind of around.
Right.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's all great information. You don't really live in Fort Worth, but you're over here a lot.
Correct.
So what do you love about living in, I'll say the Fort Worth area, but Fort Worth in general?
Oh man, I've loved Fort Worth since I was a kid. So we used to come out here for rodeos in the stockyards. I got pictures of me and my brother.
Were you a rodeo kid?
I did. Yeah, I was a calf roper.
Okay.
So me and my brother, we came out here for one rodeo. I can't remember, which one it was, but my dad, we were in the stockyards, and there's a limousine driving by. There's these ladies hanging on the top of it, and he's like, hey, can my kids get in there and take a picture? So I got a picture of me and my brother coming through a limousine sunroof with these ladies, and I'm probably 8 and my brother's 4 or, somewhere around there. And so ever since then, I've just loved Fort Worth.
And limousines.
Yeah. But, no, we always called like on a 3/4 ton pickup. It's got the lights on top of the gab. We've always called those Fort Worth lights. So when we were kids, and so it's just a small town feel in a big city. A lot to do. People are nice. For the most part, it's a conservative-minded city. And yeah, I like it a lot.
Good. Tyler, how can people get a hold of you if they want to maybe build a house or learn more about you or ask some questions?
Sure. So I've got a website. I don't have, just a whole bunch of social media stuff at the time. But my website is www.wrighthomes-tx.com. And I've got some contact info on there, phone number, email, some photos of stuff I've got going on. So
any last thoughts or tips you want to share?
If you're getting into building homes, like Brady said, just be patient, trust your builder, hire a builder that you like, hire Brady to help you through the process.
Yeah, I like that. This was another episode of Real Talk with Reside Real Estate. Thank you so much for listening. If we can be a resource to you in any way, please reach out.